look and feel very bad. But thank you very much for coming in, brother. I appreciate it. You, of course, will not be at the Cape Town 10s with Sia. Instead, there will be plenty of action for you to get stuck into next weekend as well, because you too will be wearing the Marvel-inspired jersey. And you were saying off air now that you actually are a big fan of the whole idea.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I really like it. It's something different. I think the fans like it. This year more than five people have asked me of the
Where can they get one?
They asked me for the Marvel jersey and the Blue Bulls home jersey. So I think they like it. So it's cool, man. Looking forward to playing.
Based on your look, based on your build, you probably fill out that jersey as equally good as any superhero would. So you probably fill the design and the idea of the jersey better than most. So it's maybe unfair that you look much better in the jersey than some other people will, I'm sure.
I think Jesse will look much better, but I'll take that. It feels great. I know I've checked the jersey out. It's really nice, comfortable, and I've seen pictures of Sia and the other unions guys at a photo shoot, and they really do look like the superheroes.
Yeah, well, Sia's quite a big guy as well, so he generally is quick to fill out a jersey as well. Speak to us about how things have been going. Obviously, we know we're coming up to Super Rugby, and there's a World Cup later on this year as well. A very busy 2019. If I had to take you back maybe 12 months, would you feel, maybe even 18 months, would you feel where you are now going into this coming weekend, into a brand new campaign with the Bulls for Super Rugby now? Would you look back 18 months and say, I'm confident I'll be where I am right now?
It's a tough one here. I had a tough injury. I couldn't walk for 2 months. But I'm grateful for that time because I got to spend time with family and did other things as well in terms of business. I had time for that. But I'm grateful to be back again. And ready to play. It's my passion, and I think in this season of my life, it's what God wants me to do, just playing rugby. So I'm grateful for that, and I can't wait to play again. It's been too long.
How do you deal with that kind of a blow emotionally? Because, I mean, physically we understand that there's hard work to be done, and there's physio, and there's rehabs. Often we speak to players who may injure, hamstrings or groins or quads or shoulders, etc. And they'll talk about the frustration of not being able to play, but not being able to walk, to be in the extent that you were in. I can imagine that has the ability to probably put your mind in a very dark place as well. Yet you said you filled your time quite nicely with family and business, etc. Was it emotionally tough for you to deal with something like that?
Yeah, it was tough. It was the first time I get a long-term injury. But I'm grateful for my wife. She was so supportive. And I thank God as well that gave me, the peace that surpasses all the understanding, even though things were tough. I remember a friend of mine, Bandise Marco, who used to play rugby, and he had two long-term injuries. He came to my house and asked my wife, "Has he not snapped on you yet?"
Because it's probably the reason he jokes about that is that it probably is something that can be expected, because it, again, at the risk of perhaps overdoing it. But the reason I say that is that I've spoken to many a player before that has said to me that, while I was injured here, I got depressed, or I went into a dark space, or I started questioning my career. So now for you to have this big smile on your face, to be excited for Super Rugby, to be happy to be back, that obviously shows how mentally strong you are.
Yeah, I think it's quite frustrating, but for me, I think the big thing is you must do other things, outside of rugby. Don't just live in this rugby bubble. Do other things, do business, study, do whatever you can outside, whatever you're passionate about outside as well, because rugby is not forever. So for me, it was not difficult to shift my focus, because I had my family and businesses to do, so, and I was studying at the same time, so I had a lot of things to do. Yeah.
That is an incredibly mature way of looking at it, and I imagine that for young players or youngsters that are listening to that now, that is probably an incredibly important life lesson for them to hear coming from a professional's mouth. Some might say, "Oh, well, I'm allowed to be upset because I'm injured," whereas you seem to have a far more calm approach to it, to say, keep yourself busy, stay occupied, get educated, look at life after rugby, because so many times we see these youngsters only live for the now. Happens with football, happens everywhere. You live for the now and not realizing, like yourself, you'll be 29 later on this year.
Yes.
You have a lot of life still to come. And if you are blessed with 10 more years of rugby, you then might have 30, 40 years of living. What are you going to do with those next 30, 40 years? That's very mature of you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Do you feel that kids are not looking ahead enough? getting stuck into the now and not realizing that there's a lot more to come in life?
Definitely. I actually checked the statistics. About 70% of players don't have, about 80% of players don't have qualifications. So I would say that's fine if you're doing, a business, or you're farming somewhere, or you have a business somewhere here in Central, which is awesome, a property. But a lot of guys, don't want to study. They don't want to do anything else. They're excited about rugby and fame and everything, because the character is not there yet, but the money you're getting is a lot. So it's difficult for anyone to tell you anything. So I would advise guys to study, do something else outside of rugby.
As a youngster, what is the biggest shock coming up from Eastern Cape to Johannesburg / Tshwane / Pretoria / the so-called big city? And I say that very respectfully to the Eastern Cape. I don't mean it like that, but I mean, there's obviously a big difference from being up in the city here than what was life like back in Eastern Cape growing up. When you started then moving up from, NMMU to come up to this side of town, did it take a bit of a cultural shock on your system? Did you have to get used to it?
Yeah, I think it's the pressure of being in a bigger union, and the union that has won, Super Rugby 3 times. There's no other union in South Africa that has achieved that. So those pressures for me, were tough, but I embraced them because they made me grow as a person as well. In terms of the city and the province, I like the thinking. I like the fastness. I'm just enjoying everything about it at the moment.
Oh, you're a city boy now. Have you converted?
You gotta adapt. I think rugby has taught me that. Sometimes you play at home, and next week you're playing in Argentina, and the following week you're playing in Australia. So you're gonna adapt. You have to adapt.
Have you enjoyed the travel aspect of this? As you mentioned, now it's obviously very different for some people that have not had the chance to travel as much, and now to be in the opportunity where you are allowed to travel the world through your job, through your profession, through your talent. Has that been an eye-opening factor as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's something I'll treasure for the rest of my life. It's truly a blessing, to be able to travel at such a young age as well. Going to places where people, at late 40s are still dreaming of going. Other cases. So it's a great blessing.
What would be your goals for 2019? If I had to say to you, listen, here is a blank piece of paper. Write down whether it be 5, 10, 3, doesn't matter. What have you looked at for 2019 to say, you know what, we have Super Rugby around the corner. I would hate to float the idea of a World Cup floating around. All the professionals are keeping an eye on that as well. What have you put down and said, you know what, in 2019, this is what I want to achieve before December comes around?
Yeah, if I can play, consistently at the Bulls, and get as much game time as I can there, and do well there, I feel then the rest of the things will just fall into place. If I'm on form at the Bulls, then I might be at the World Cup. I have a big chance of being at the World Cup, which is my dream, and I think as well as any other professional, player to play in the World Cup. So I would say playing well at the Bulls and being at the World Cup, playing the World Cup.
You are listening to the voice of Lizo Gqoboka. He's joining us live in studio. The conversation is being put on 702's Facebook page. If you want to check him out and join us here in studio, please head over to 702's Facebook page, and you will indeed see the live footage of Lizo here in studio. Back in 2016, if I'm not mistaken, you played for the SAA side. You were able to get onto that international stage as such. To make that jump from the SAA squad to being able to go and feature for the Springboks, how big of a jump do you feel that is?
I don't think it's that big, actually, because I feel I've actually seen a lot of guys that played in the SAA playing for Springboks. I'm actually glad that we had that setup. I think it was amazing that people that are not in the Springboks currently can be given an opportunity to taste, international rugby, through, SAA and England Saxon. So I've seen a lot of guys developing from that SAA squad and playing for Springboks. Thomas Tito was there, Lucanio Mampimbi, a lot of guys. So I think it was a great initiative, and it's a test match on its own. For me, when I played for both. I played for SA, and the following year I played for Springboks. against the Barbarians in England, and it didn't feel like there's a big, there's a big gap. So it was great to have that.
And you mentioned Lucanio, you mentioned Makazola as well. These are guys that have come through the system and have proven, I would hate to use the word easy because it certainly is not, but it shows that if and when you do the right amount of work, it perhaps is easier to bridge the gap between that platform and the next level up,
Yeah, I say, if you're hungry for it, it doesn't matter, um, how tough the road is, the journey is. If you're hungry, you're gonna get there, and those guys have shown how hungry they are, and now they're reaping their rewards.
I asked Sia Kolisi on the phone a little bit earlier on, what is it that the Stormers have to do to try and bridge that gap between, where the Lions have put themselves right now and how there seems to be a bit of a chasing pack in South African rugby. And these things go in cycles, as you mentioned, during the mid to late 2000s, the Bulls were untouchable and no one came close to them. The Stormers then dominated after that and won conference after conference. So these things come in waves, I understand. As it stands now, after 3 consecutive finals, the Lions seem to be the team to catch it in the South African Conference right now. What do the Bulls need to do? As I asked Sia for the Stormers, what must the Bulls do then, in your mind, to try and close that gap between where the Lions are and where you guys want to see yourselves?
I think we've got a good squad, a nice blend between experienced guys. As you know, we've got Scarp, we've got Dwayne Vermeulen, Lord, Jesse, those guys, a lot of experience, and we've got a lot of youngsters, Mani Libo, guys like Mani Libo coming up as well. So I think it was just a matter of keeping the same squad for a while. If you look at the Lions, they've had that squad since I think 2011 or 2012. They got relegated, but they kept the squad. Came back 2013, back in Super Rugby, and they started playing better because they know each other.
Here's a nice tweet that's come through on my timeline now. What needs to be done to ensure that more youngsters are coming through Lizo's area of the Eastern Cape to reach the level you're at now? Because there's often this debate and this fight that in the Eastern Cape we're so blessed with talent that many people seem to think falls through the cracks or is not given the right attention or resources. What is it that we need to do to go down there, identify, I'm sure, the hundreds of kids that have this talent and ensure that they maybe come up to the big city or stay down there and play, for the Kings or whoever it may be? Where do we need to do to go down to the Eastern Cape and ensure that all of that talent is looked after and produced to reach top level?
Yeah, I think, let me say this personally first. I've got a foundation, Lizo Gqoboka Foundation, of which we're taking kids from the rural areas and, we give them opportunities, we place them in schools. It's not only rugby. I've got rugby, soccer, and netball, as well. And so I feel that in terms of talent, because I'm not doing that much, so I would say places like Bulldogs and AP Kings, are great places to develop players. Are just, they just have financial problems, which is a pity because actually comes from there, played for Border. Mambimpi as well played for Border. So there's great talent there, but I think the investors, I would encourage the investors to invest there and put the right people to manage everything as well. Yeah, because there's talent.
Another tweet of mine another one saying, Lizo is fire on my timeline. So people are watching, they're enjoying what they're seeing. There we go. Piche making sure the camera is firmly on here. Where can we find you on social media? Do a nice little self-promotion here. Where can we find you? And how active are you on your social media?
I am actually, yeah, my wife has taught me well. On Instagram, Lizo Gqoboka, and Facebook, Lizo Gqoboka, Twitter as well, Lizo Gqoboka 1 actually. And for my foundation, I've got a website as well, which is www.lizogqoboka.org. You can find me there. Any questions? I've got a nice team to reply.
Okay. Well, listen, you've walked an incredible road already to get to the point where you are, to have you back in rugby on the eve of the Super Rugby competition, to have you back in rugby on the eve of the World Cup, to be running your foundation and looking after kids that are coming from the Eastern Cape as well. I think you're doing an incredible job. So let me say thank you for coming in. We appreciate it. Please keep up the wonderful work, and we'll be keeping a very close eye on you, not just in your Marvel jersey, but in the Bulls jersey throughout the rest of the year.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
And we got Lizo Gqoboka joining us live in studio. 702's Facebook page if you want to go check out the live stream. Lizo, upstaging us here in studio.